It's an oil change day. We got oil for the CT70. We got oil for the Civic. We got filter. So I'm gonna do the car first because I want to get that done, and the bike takes like 10 minutes. So we're gonna get the oil change in the car first. She's draining. So we're switching to Rotella T4 with some zinc additive for the dyno, and that'll be what we run now. I've always ran Mobile 1 in this car ever since this motor was in the RSX, but now that she's going to be making some power and getting hot, we're going to run some new oil in it. Hopefully give it a chance to survive. But so while this drains, I'm going to flush another probably 2 quarts of fresh oil through it just to flush everything out real good, and then we'll get the new oil in. Oil change is done in the car. I started it up and let it cycle through. Now the only time it'll run before the dyno is maybe to drive it on the trailer, and then other than that it'll be on the dyno. So she's ready to go. Fresh oil, fresh filter. The bike, as usual, I've waited way too long to change the oil, so it's super swampy and there's not that much in there. I always put just about a full quart in the bike, sometimes a full quart if I have the oil cooler, and not a full quart comes out. So it's whatever. Then we'll put the good stuff in. This is the stuff I've always used since day one, so hasn't given me one single problem, so I'm just going to keep using it. I don't see why I wouldn't. But yeah, fresh oil for everything. I should have bought oil for the Z50s because I don't even think there's oil in the things. But, oh well. They're not too important. They run fine. You could probably run those things off water for oil and they'd be fine. But I only picked up 1 quart because I only have so many hands to walk through AutoZone with, so we'll just do this bike. Well, tomorrow's the day she gets tuned. So I got a few small things I got to do. I got to jack it up and get the exhaust kind of flattened out. It's hanging a little bit low in one spot from when I put it on. I was planning on doing that a long time ago, but kind of put this thing on the side. But I don't really have to. I might not even do it until it's after the dyno because it's not really a big deal. But oil's changed. Everything's good. Yeah, it's pretty much ready. So we're gonna get to the dyno, hope it survives, and then if it does, when I'll come back, I'll order all the bushings for the control arms in the front, get all the new control arms up front, new ball joints, tighten everything up in the front, and then we'll get another alignment. So it's perfect, but she's ready to go, I think. Crossing my fingers. Yeah, tomorrow, finally. Today's what, March 30th, Saturday. I was planning on getting this thing tuned before Thanksgiving, so that kind of gives you an idea of how long I've been waiting to get it tuned. But confirmed for tomorrow, so hopefully the next clip will be loading this thing on a trailer and then heading up there. I don't know, make your guesses on what it's going to make for power. The previous owner of the supercharger had a bone stock K20 just like this, less miles on it, but I mean same setup, and he made 450 on E85 and 399 I believe on pump gas, but we're on E85. But it's the winter blend still, so it's probably like E70 something. It's probably not even E85 yet, but it's got a full tank of it, so whatever it is. But I don't know. I'll be happy with anything over 350, but I'll be super happy if anything over 400. So I'd actually really like it to be around 400. Like 400 even would be, good. 450 is a little much for having an open diff and some street tires. Still, it's an open diff, stock trans, stock motor. So 400 would be plenty fun on the street. I mean, this thing's fun at 240 horsepower on motor, so anything more than that's going to be fun. But now it comes down to the point of, can everything else handle it? So This trans is the original 6-speed out of my RSX with 200,000 miles on it. So good luck to that thing. The motor I'm not super worried about. I feel like the motor will handle the power just fine. I mean, I've beat the crap out of this motor for 2-3 years now on the limiter every day. It's been fine. Doesn't smoke, doesn't do anything weird, but I mean, it does have 200,000 miles on the motor, trans, everything. So I mean, cross your fingers, but if it ends up making 450, 460, something like that, cool, because there's no way to turn the power down with this other than to lower the rev limiter. That's about it. But we're not going to do that, so we'll just kind of see what it makes. Everything on the list is done. I can mark that twice because I did it twice because I thought I was going to get it dynoed like 3 months ago, so I changed the oil and I didn't, but I just did it again. So everything else is done. We'll get the tool bag and the belts and everything put together. Lug nuts are tight. All belts are good, tightened. I'm going to go through one more time and just make sure everything's tight that I messed with during winter. Other than that, there she is. She's ready to go. So tomorrow morning we'll get her loaded up and we'll head to the dyno. Truck's here, trailer's here. We're going to get her loaded up.
You thought about it. Casi que por caso me lo ven, ¿eh? Yeah, I know.
And this is 3. I figured if we cut here and welded the V-bend to there, and then did just a straight 90 up out the hood, and then made a mount to the motor somehow, so it would be perfect. And then I can just use exhaust.
Alright, we're home from the dyno. Car did good. Motor's still in one piece, transmission's still in one piece. Supercharger, not so much. There's 4 bolts that hold the supercharger to the bracket, and one was stripped out when I got the kit, so I tried to Loctite it in, hoping it would hold, and it didn't. So supercharger's got to come off, and I got to either put some helicoils in it or figure out a way to get them 4 bolts to never come out again or be stripped. But the dyno's not calibrated correct, so the graph only shows like 360 horsepower and like 240 torque, but calibrated, because it maxed the 1050X injectors out on 85, so calibrated it puts me right at 450 wheel horsepower and like 290 torque. So those are the realistic numbers, which is, you know, on the last setup this supercharger was on was a stock K20A2 just like this, on 14 pounds, which it was hitting 14 pounds today. So it should, you know, be pretty much identical to the last motor it was on, which is 450 and 277 torque, I believe. So it made exactly what it should. Yeah, right at 450 and about 290 torque. So I'm going to start tearing this thing apart and getting the supercharger off and figuring out who can fix it for me, because I really can't drive it without getting that fixed because I don't want to mess it up any more than it is, since these superchargers are not cheap. I knew it was stripped going into it, but I just was hoping it would hold, and it didn't. So we're going to pull the bumper off, get the intercooler off, get everything taken apart, and I'm going to get the supercharger out hopefully tonight, and then hopefully this week I can get it to somebody that can fix it for me, and we'll get it back in, and then I can go out in the street and see what it feels like. But for sure going to need some tires, for sure going to need a diff in the trans. But yeah, she made really good power, so it's good. Pretty much maxed the 1050cc injectors out. So I mean, if you do the math, a K20 on the 85 maxing out 1000s, it's up there in the mid 400s. So there it is. There's the dyno video. It's finally tuned. Sucks I can't go out and drive it, but I'm gonna get this supercharger off, and hopefully by the end of the week, next weekend, I can get on the street and do some pulls. So there it is. There's the charger. If you've never really been able to see it very clear before with the intercooler and everything in the way, but it's the Rotrex C3881. It's the race kit for K20. So yep, there it is. We'll let this drain and we'll get the thing out. Okay, so quick rundown on exactly what happened. So this bracket bolts to the block. There's another bracket on the block. This bolts to that for 1, 2, 3, 4 holes. These 4 bolts run through this bracket into the supercharger to mount it to the bracket. This one, so these bolts, they run through this bracket, through here, and they thread in right here to the housing. The threads in this housing right here on this one are stripped out. So what I did was I Loctited it, hoping it would stay, because it torqued in there, felt decent. Hoping it would stay. I mean, it stayed on there fine with a bunch of idling and 5 or 6 street miles, and then most of the dyno. So I mean, it held up for a while, and then finally the threads let go again, and this bolt backed out to about here, and the only thing keeping it from falling out was the frame rail in the car. So I think what I have to do, I don't really want to do it, but I have to pull this housing off and get all 4 of these helicoiled so they're nice and strong, and then I can put this back together, and it should torque on fine without any more stripped threads. So that's basically, I've heard it happen to other people with these, so I'm not the only one. I knew it was stripped going into it. I was just hoping it would hold, but toward the end it finally gave out. So I mean, it's tuned though, so that's the important part. So once I get this fixed, I can slap it on and it'll be good to go. I can go out and rip on it and go drive it, do whatever. But I mean, if you know about these superchargers, they are not cheap, and they do not warranty them. So just buying this alone, a new one, is like upwards of $3,000. So we're gonna do what we can. I'm gonna see who can do this for me, and we'll get it fixed hopefully this week. I don't know, but we're gonna do what we can. So I'm gonna try to save that, because that's liquid gold. But there's the other bracket it bolts to right there. There's one up there, there's one down there, so there's 2 brackets on the block. There's the oil cooler for the supercharger. So I mean, it's a pretty simple setup, obviously, but there's the issue right there. So I have to get that figured out, and then we'll go from there and see if we can't get this thing back together, and hopefully get on the street and see how long these tires last, because that's a lot of power for some street tires. But that will be the dyno video. I've been waiting for a very long time to get done. So there it is, tore apart after the dyno. Something has to break, so I mean, I'll take what I can get. I'd rather have it be this, as long as it's fixable, than be, you know, transmission or bottom end, drop a valve, something like that. Because this is, I mean, it took me a half hour to get this out, so not bad, but obviously still kind of sucks. Most expensive part on the car pretty much has to have an issue, but that's the way it goes. So we'll try to get it back together as soon as we can. There it is. That'll be the end of this one. And then obviously we got this thing still on the chopping block. We got some parts coming in pretty soon for that, so that'll do it.